What's up, everybody? John Hoover, AllSooners, along with Ryan Chapman. I got Randall Sweet. We're on the turf at the Alamo Dome. Sooners just went down, and down hard, 38-24 to the Arizona Wildcats. This was not an ideal game for either team. What a weird game this was, you guys. Ryan, we made the assessment before the game. It felt like Arizona wanted this game more. It felt like it meant more to Arizona, but Oklahoma had the better players. I think that bore out tonight, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you saw Arizona had the hot start as Jackson Arnold, the true freshman, worked his way into the game. Arnold settled in. Oklahoma dominated the second and third quarter up until Jalil Farooq decided he has a fumbling problem. We'll get to that. And then the fourth quarter, Oklahoma just couldn't get back over the hump because didn't have enough offensive line play that was consistent. Not enough happening around Jackson Arnold to overcome the freshman mistakes from Jackson Arnold. And what you got was Arizona pulling away, and now Brent Venables has as many losses in his Oklahoma career as Lincoln Riley did throughout his entire tenure in Norman.
Woof. Randall, you're down on the field. 3 of those turnovers, Oklahoma was, Brent Venables said it in the postgame press conference, you can't win a game if you're 6-1 on the, he said if you're down in turnover margin 6-1, you cannot win a game. That's what Oklahoma was, 6-1. 3 interceptions by Jackson Arnold. It was nearly 4, but it was ruled a fumble instead. 2 fumbles by Jalil Farooq, 1 fumble by Jackson Arnold. That was 100,000,000% the difference in the ballgame. How hard was Arizona hitting tonight? You're down on the field. That was impressive stuff.
Well, it was physical all night. I mean, I'm sure you guys could tell from up in the press box, but I mean, down here on the field, the players were talking trash to each other after every play. When Drake Stoops gets his helmet ripped off, he's getting up, he's talking trash to the Arizona players. So, I mean, you said it, Arizona was motivated. I think, again, that bore out not only in the way they played, and especially in the physicality that they had at the line of scrimmage, you know, on the defensive end, you know, flying around, even at the second levels, you know, laying the hits on. Jackson Arnold took a few pretty big hits, you know, some of the running backs, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that really you could tell that that Arizona, the Wildcats, they were fired up for the game, and they were letting Oklahoma, the players, the coaches, the fans hear it all game. And I think at the end of the game, if you didn't see, some of the Arizona guys were, you know, pointing at the Oklahoma sideline, talking some trash there, and I think that you saw them kind of play that way all night. They were not in a bad way, and that bore out well.
You know, you look at the stats, and the numbers are support what we were saying. Oklahoma 562 yards total offense. Arizona had 383. At one point, it was 527 to 270. But Oklahoma was sloppy with the football, kept giving the ball back to Arizona. Arizona picked up some yards and some touchdowns, obviously, late to kind of even this thing out. The thing started sideways. OU falls behind 13-0. Then they reel off 24 unanswered points and made it look effortless. But again, the collapse, 25 unanswered points for Arizona to finish this thing. How do you account for that? How do you account for those kind of wild swings in one game?
Jalil Farooq can't hold to the football. He torched 2 scoring drives. One of them that would have got Oklahoma up 14-13 in the first quarter, or the second quarter, excuse me, going into the end zone opposite of us, and then Oklahoma up 24-13. Whether you believe in it or not, ESPN win probability, the Sooners are driving. Jalil Farooq is about to catch a ball and put Oklahoma in the red zone, and the win probability was like 96%. Jalil Farooq, who fumbled against Tulsa, opening kickoff, who fumbled a crucial fumble against Kansas and had 2 awful turnovers tonight, pulls the ball down and inexplicably just lets it get punched directly to the air. It turns into an 86-yard pick 6 initially was ruled, turns to a scoop and score. Arizona's sideline was dead. The Oklahoma fans had taken over, sees total momentum. Jalil Farooq laid this game up on a platter. You got to help your true freshman out. I know Jackson Arnold turned the ball over 4 times himself, but Brent Venables said they've got to be better around Jackson Arnold. It starts with Jalil Farooq. You can't be the veteran guy. You can't be the guy that was supposed to be the go-to #1 wide receiver coming into the year and give up those 2 awful plays. Arizona suddenly had some life, and that was the only points Oklahoma allowed in the third quarter. Was not anything the defense did. It was Jalil Farooq unable to hold onto the football, what should have been a routine play. Arizona
takes control of the game early, gave it up in the middle 2 quarters. Ryan said, listen to these numbers, 361 yards by Jackson Arnold. 361 is the 4th most ever in OU Bowl history. In your first career start, good job, good on you, right? Then you give up the 3 interceptions, which, Randall, this is something that I thought I saw early on. Maybe you saw it down on the ground on the field. He underestimated, Jackson did, underestimated the speed of the closing speed of the Arizona secondary. He was floating balls. He's got a rocket arm, and he was floating balls, trying to float them perfectly over, and guys were just coming over and stepping in front, undercutting routes. How much did that weigh into the overall 3 interceptions? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that him kind of floating the balls. The one that really sticks out to me is I think it was the second interception, the one to Drake Stoops, where I think a safety came over towards the sideline and grabbed that one. But really, I mean, you could talk about it. We thought that after Jackson Arnold rebounded from those first few interceptions, that Oklahoma was about to take really just blow Arizona out. For a second, it looked like that when they went up, I think 24-13. And then you mentioned the Jalil Farouk fumble, another Jackson Arnold interception later, and then that kind of killed all the momentum that OU had and just returned it all to Arizona. And you could really feel that down here on the field with Arizona. You mentioned the Arizona sideline and on the field. I mean, that momentum, the swagger that they played with kind of shot back up after forcing those turnovers.
Ryan said it right before we started taping. 279 yards by Jackson Arnold of his 361 in the second and third quarter. First quarter, a nightmare. Fourth quarter, also a nightmare. And the end result, 38-24. Sooners are heading home with a 10-3 record. Pretty solid season. I don't think 10-3 is what anybody at Oklahoma is after.
You talk about like context matters and all this stuff. You had told someone before the season 10-3. It's a bowl loss. It's the third loss. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans would have taken it. But you look at it, those 2 losses against Kansas and Oklahoma State. You have terrible play calling in Lawrence, 3 turnovers. You have terrible play calling in Spots and Stillwater, 3 turnovers. You come out and turn the ball over 6 combined turnovers in those 2 losses. 6 turnovers tonight alone. That's inexplicable. Teams that are looking to make that step forward do not absolutely implode like that. I don't care if there's a true freshman out there. You saw Gavin Sawchuk. It looked like he pulled up in the third quarter. OU had no running game outside of Gavin Sawchuk. The offensive line was fine at times in pass pro. Bill Beanbo's got to do a lot of work to that group. They are not ready for the SEC. They are not ready for the SEC, certainly without Caden Green. That's on recruiting and development. That just didn't happen as you look at that. And even like the bright spot, the young piece, Jacob Sexton had some penalties. I think he kind of just wore down late. Jackson Arnold had no help in the fourth quarter. I think that's why you got the 2 additional turnovers. Yeah. There's a lot this team has to fix. They've got to find some sort of consistency on the offense, and that wasn't going to happen in a 15.
Sure.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen coming from Levy's offense to Latrell and all that in 15 bowl practices.
Can I say something real quick? To me, this game had a lot of similarities to Oklahoma State in that Oklahoma started poorly. They were able to punch back and fight their way back into the game, but then when it looked like they took control, they weren't able to deliver that kill shot. And eventually, the other team got the momentum back. They went on a long, 95-yard drive late in the game, just like Oklahoma State did, to put Oklahoma down and out. And I mean, to me, it felt a lot like that Oklahoma State game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Gavin Sawchuk, 134 yards on the ground. He also had 40 yards receiving, 42. So he was busy. He was dynamic. He was exciting. He was exceptional. They spread the football out to Nick Anderson, 73 yards receiving. Drake Stoops got hot late, 82 yards receiving. Farouk had 57. I said Sawchuk. Brennan Thompson with the 63-yard touchdown, career long. He was going to be my X factor almost. Brennan Thompson with the long touchdown from Jackson Arnold. That was a great throw, very aggressive call. They tried it again in the third quarter. I guess that was the start of the third quarter. Tried it again on the next drive. But let's talk about the defense. The pass defense was abysmal. They held 51 yards rushing, I think. No, 29 yards rushing for Arizona. 29 yards net rushing. That includes 6 sacks, 5 sacks. Yeah, 5 sacks. And Oklahoma dominated. Oklahoma switched a little defense. They ran with a 3-man front almost exclusively up front. They blitzed a lot, and I thought that really shook Fafita, especially in the second and third quarters. But he got comfortable. He started moving around. Guys, he had 2 receivers go over 150 yards. That accounted for 2 touchdowns. What's wrong with the Oklahoma defense going into the offseason?
Tonight, frankly, Hoove, they did everything they needed to do win this game. Big plays aside, 5 sacks,
57 and
5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. The only touchdown they gave up in the first half was on a short field. The only touchdown they gave up in the third quarter was Jalil Farouk not being able to hold onto the football. They wore down. The defense was on the field the whole time because the offense couldn't move. I know Brent Venables said, yeah, you got to be better, all that stuff. I get it, and to take that step to be elite. Tonight, They limited one of the most explosive offenses in college football to 250 yards through 3 quarters. Yes, it looked bad in a couple of spots, but they bowed up and they forced 2 field goals in the first half.
Yeah.
You got to fix the coverage. It wasn't on the defense.
In the second half, they stiffened in the red zone. That's good. They did some good things, and they got after Fafita in the backfield. They shut down the running game. But there were receivers running wide open through the secondary.
Well, on the midweek pod, we talked about if Oklahoma's defensive front was able to get home, that it would help the secondary out a lot. Oklahoma's defensive front got home. But
I didn't expect that, did you?
I didn't expect that either, but guys like Woody Washington, even Gentry Williams on the back end, those guys were getting beat deep. Jacob Cowing and McMillan. Those 2 guys I felt like those were the only receivers Arizona had, but they torched OU. It felt like every time Noah Fafita, especially I don't have the numbers in front of me, Hoove does, but it felt like watching the game down on the field that every time there was a 3rd down, McMillan or Cowing was getting the ball and they were getting the first down.
Yeah, Fafita finished with 354 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, sacked 5 times. He was hurried. He was rushed.
Yep.
They knocked the hell out of him about 4 or 5 times. Made him really uncomfortable. I like that about the Oklahoma defense. But in coverage, they were struggling.
Yes.
There was a play coming off the goal line where he just chucked it deep, and there's a receiver down there who caught a 50-yard pass. Both DBs, he's double covered. Both DBs are looking at each other like, "Where's the football? Where's the football?" Well, it's probably up in the air. And the receiver came down with it for a 50-yard reception.
McMillan, he's got Peyton Bowen, and he's just able to move him out of the way with his hands. He tracks the ball perfectly.
Yeah. What, did you have something else?
I think the secondary needs to play better. This is all on the offense. This is 100% on the offense. The defense did everything they needed to do.
What does Seth Luttrell need to do different as he transitions? I thought he called a decent plan.
I thought he called a good game.
I thought he called a good game, but the 6 turnovers, how do you overcome that as a play caller, right?
Yeah, and the first 2 interceptions especially I thought were true freshman quarterback getting up to speed.
Yep.
There is no game planning for both of the fumbles for Farouk. I thought the last Arnold fumble was literally you're chasing the game at that point, and that's a freshman that I thought that those were all the really, really bad one was probably the one to start the 4th quarter. And then for Luttrell and Joe John Finley, when Sawchuk, he returned to the game, but he wasn't the same guy. It's not their fault that they don't have any offensive linemen that can come in and actually get some push in the run game. It's not their fault that Tommy Walker doesn't have the tops. That's stuff that's been issues all year long that we talked about for the first half of the season up until Texas, right? So, that again, 15 bowl practices, that wasn't going to fix all that. But Taylor Tatum's got to come in, or Javante Barnes, or somebody's got to be a difference maker, and they got to hit on their portal offensive linemen, because I think you saw the depth just was strained tonight. I think that's where a lot of those holdings came late, was they looked exhausted.
The interior of that offensive line is going to need some work before next year, because that could be scary. If you have to deal with those guys as your interior going into the SEC next year, that could be rough.
Yeah, that's it. I think we're going to wrap. Nothing else to say about this one. Sooners finished the season 10-3. Again, some good, some bad. This was a team that was, what did we say, 8 points from being undefeated? Regular season. And they came out tonight, had the lead in the 4th quarter, couldn't stop giving the football away to the Arizona Wildcats. And Arizona, one thing I wanted to get to real quick was Drake Stoops. 2 of his interceptions, 2 of Jackson Arnold's interceptions, thank you, were forcing the football to Drake Stoops. I got the feeling that Arizona came into this game saying, you're going to throw the ball to 12, watch this. And they came out and they hit him, they beat him up, they knocked him around, they aggravated him, they cut up under his routes, picked the ball off. I thought that was a huge part of the game, is they kept trying to force it. He kept trying to force it to Stoops, and that was not working early on.
Yeah, and finally it got back to it, and you saw there was even a moment in the 2nd quarter where I thought Arnold saw Stoops wide open and then decided not to throw it his way. It almost looked like a guy that was in his head about that, but that's all stuff that I think freshman kinks get worked out. But this was, for me, the stat of the day. This came from Sooner Stats on Twitter. This is the most turnover 6 since OU lost Bedlam in 1997, also a 6 turnover game. We're going back to the John Blake era yet again. That's not what you want to do if you're Brent Venables. So much positive this year. The team can implode like this at the finish, and you put this big stamp and you feel excited going to the SEC. There's a lot they got to fix.
A lot they got to fix on defense and on offense. Special teams was fine, I thought.
Elzinga had the
Elzinga
game of
was
his
great.
life.
Yeah.
That was the
Game of his life for Luke Elzinga.
best play of the day for Oklahoma was a 50-yard punt that rolled out of bounds at the 1-yard line.
And he downed one at the 5 too.
Yeah,
He was awesome. Yeah.
And one at the 11 as well.
amazing job by him. Not so much the offense. Defense was hit and miss, I think. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got to talk about tonight. I just started cracking up because of something I thought of in the post game. Brent Venables didn't have much to say. They talked for about 15 minutes. The players talked with him for about 15 minutes. Coordinators were not available tonight, so no answers from Ted Roof, no answers from Seth Luttrell. Maybe we'll talk to him in the spring. That's it. Season's over, guys. 38-24 Sooners lose. We'll be on to spring football in a matter of what's going to feel like weeks.
Hey,
and it's softball season.
I'll be in Orlando tomorrow.
He's in Orlando tomorrow. That's right. Getting out of here at 5 a.m. to go cover some recruiting news in Orlando. And he's coming back here at the end of the week to cover more recruiting here at AllSooners. Keep it here at AllSooners. We've got post-game analysis, interviews, press conference, the whole thing. Stories, notes, everything is at allsooners.com. For Ryan, for Randall, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.